I was always the person that found a way to dive head first and learn how to swim after. Of course, that lifestyle progressed until the point where it got dangerous. Blacking out. I was in basements with people smoking meth, and I was scared for my life behind the wheel one night, intoxicated with my best friend. And then the next moment, like the blink of an eye, we were heading towards a tree. I woke up to try and find my best friend unconscious and not waking up. Shortly after that impact of that crash, I tried a very emotional act, and I tried to take my own life.
All right, what's going on, everybody? That was tonight's guest, Cody Demerais. My name is Daniel Unmanageable, and this is Hard Knox Talks, coming at you from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Treaty Number 6 territory, and the traditional homeland of the Métis people. Let's bring in Cody. What's going on, brother?
Hey, guys. Oh, just happy to be here, Danny and Donna. So thankful to be a part of this podcast and the YouTube channel. That everything that you got rocking, I've never seen more expertise put into something like this, and it's an honor to be a part of it. So thank you.
You're very welcome. I still have to chuckle under my breath when people say expertise, because I swear to God, man, I'm hanging on for dear life over here. I'm like a toddler.
And honest.
Yeah, I'm like a toddler at the wheel of a freight train, man. Just like, hang on. There's a reason I say buckle up at the end of every description. He's like, man, this is a roller coaster, let me tell you. So, but anyways, is there anything that you would like to say tonight before we dive in?
You know what, buddy? I'm ready to dive in, actually. You know, Sunday night tonight. Had a good family day today with my beautiful fiance and my beautiful daughter, and I'm ready to spend a couple hours with you guys tonight. So,
all right. Well, let's not waste any time. Let's go.
This is Hard Knox Talks.
Okay, before we dive in, I just want to let our viewers and listeners know that tonight's live production is sponsored in part by Prairie Harm Reduction in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, and Naranon Groups of Regina and Saskatoon. For more information on all our sponsors, to stay up to date on our upcoming live streams, check out our merch, find all our audios and more, go to www.hardknoxtalks.com. Cody, where do we even begin? I know we had you on almost a couple of years ago now, and a lot has happened since then, but we cannot just move forward without going back a little bit, because there's probably a lot of new people watching tonight. So why don't you start at the beginning? Why don't you tell us a little bit about what it was like growing up?
yeah, for sure, my man. And to touch base on that last time, of course, a lot of things have changed since that first time we appeared on the show together, of course. And I'm definitely looking forward to reconnecting with the people that were viewing at that time. And of course, all the, hundreds and hundreds of new viewers that you have this time. If not thousands, I should say, actually.
Millions.
And millions.
Somebody might be watching this 20 years from tonight. We might be at millions by then. So, shoot for the stars.
Well, couldn't agree more, buddy. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
So how I was brought up, actually, I was brought up most of my life by my single mother here in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, who I definitely know did the best that she possibly could with me. But I, of course, put her through a lot of troubles, a lot of agony, a lot of pain, unfortunately, because, of course, I was a very stubborn person, very angry person, and I didn't know how to communicate very well. And I took it out on pretty much everyone that I cared about, including my mom. So if my mom's watching and listening, love you, Mom, and I'm very sorry for that, but I'm glad for the relationship we still have to this day.
So how long, or how early on did that behavior start, and why were you so mad?
Yeah, for sure. So when I started experimenting with drugs and alcohol, I think I was about 11 or 12 years old, actually. And so where that came from is my mom worked at Weyerhaeuser here in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, the pulp and paper mill. It was pretty much a staple of Prince Albert. 700 people, including, truck drivers, delivery drivers, people that serve food in the cafeteria. About 700 people actually worked at this facility. And that was right around the time when my mom and all those other, of course, employees of the mill got a letter saying, you know what? Hey, you're going to have to find a new job. You're going to have to find something else to bring that income in, to pay that mortgage, to pay the water, the power, put groceries in the fridge. And so at about that time is when I actually started to realize that, I need to take a little bit of charge of my own life and maybe help put in some effort with actually getting myself a job so that I could actually help pay for some of the sports that I was wanting to be a part of, like hockey. I remember working around 11 years old, actually, on the weekends, and summertime came around and almost full time to try and save up a few pennies and a few dollars and actually put in my own, my work ethic so that I could actually come and play hockey here in Prince Albert. And so not necessarily being super guided with my own, best interest. Of course, having a little bit of disposable income in my own pockets at that age, I grew a little angry because I looked around, a lot of people my age, similar situations, but no one else really had to work. And it kind of angered me that, what the heck did I do, unfortunately, to have to put in all these hours just to play a sport. But, it's something that I look back on now, and I probably wouldn't be here to this day with some of the successes that we've been able to accomplish if I didn't have that work ethic ingrained in me back then. But of course, 11, 12, 13 years old, I didn't see it that way, unfortunately.
So you mentioned that your mom was laid off and you took it upon yourself to get work. Now at 11 years old, that is sort of a very forward way of behaving. Where did that work ethic come from? Like, and to add to that, is that where some, like you mentioned you were angry, but is that where some of your anger came towards your mother?
You know what? It subconsciously it might have, and looking back on it, I think it probably did actually. I held a little bit of resentment that I had to go and do that, and no one forced me to go and do it. But so to kind of backpedal a little bit, I used to have these great family friends that used to take me to hockey games here in Prince Albert to watch the Prince Albert Raiders play hockey. And, they were a well-off family and they always had tickets for these games and venues. And so they always took me under their wing and, allowed me to come watch the Raiders play in the evenings with them. And of course, covered the ticket costs and, would buy me food and slushes here and there. And very thankful for that back then because, they knew things were a little bit tougher financially with me and my mom. But, after watching the Prince Albert Raiders play hockey to the intensity that they did, seeing that team, commitment, everyone patting each other on the backs, the smiles on the benches, I quickly grew into loving that atmosphere. And so, of course, right around that time, that's when my mom lost her job and I got the bright idea for next season that, hey, you know what? I want to play hockey myself. And, I barely stepped on skates up until that point in my life. I think it was like 1 or 2 times in the year leading up to that I actually stepped on skates, and it was more or less borrowed skates that I did from, the elementary school when they took us to the skating rink that was a few blocks away or whatever each winter a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
But I had the bright idea that I want to play hockey. And I still remember to this day asking my mom to play hockey back then, right after she lost her job. And, I seen a pain, a sadness in her eyes because I didn't know this at the time, but my mom was a little worried about how she was going to pay, simple things like the mortgage or power, put groceries in the fridge, of course.
And what 11-year-old would think of that, really?
Well, I mean, it's unfortunate because everyone else has different, situations, environments that they are living in, of course, and some are a bit different levels than each other. And that's okay. But, I didn't understand that. But until I did ask and start to see the pain behind my mom's eyes a little bit, I started to understand that pretty soon. And it actually did help me grow a little bit of empathy, actually, for being in other people's shoes at that time. So, at 11 years old, I started to grow that empathetic heart a great deal, actually.
Tell us a little bit about the first time you got loaded. Like, what were the circumstances and how did it make you feel?
Yeah, for sure. So, it was shortly after, of course, because I ended up, making enough money with that job and cutting grass and stuff like that and taking care of people's yards. But pretty soon, after that hockey season, that first one was over, I started experimenting with drugs and alcohol because, well, I still have disposable income in my pocket. And what else
Mhm.
do I spend my time with? So, of course, I started to hang around with groups of people, a little bit older kids that were into alcohol or smoking weed and things of that matter. And I started experimenting, but the person that I am, like how my DNA makeup is that I'm not a person that just dips his toes in the water, right? I'm a person that
Mhm.
dives head first. And like your preview showed, I'm a kind of person that tries to learn how to swim afterwards. And so,
Mhm.
uh,
And
the
and
first
you're
time was
still
like,
like that.
hey,
And you're still like that today.
definitely,
Yeah.
buddy, definitely
Yeah.
a little bit more channeled in the more productive way of life. But,
Of course, yeah.
you know, yeah.
Yeah. So you loved it then. The first time you got loaded, you're like, I'm home. This is amazing. I'm going to do this all the time. Is that how it went?
You know what? It did actually. And like, the first time was probably a beer or two. The
Mhm.
second time was a bit more. The third time was a bit more. The fourth time was a bit more. But
Mhm.
deep down inside, I was trying to fill an emptiness, a hole that I had deep down inside. Now, maybe it's just because I never knew where I belonged in life. And I was always trying to find those, you know, alternatives where I need to fit in. And
Mhm.
so, of course, that was one way that I found out I fit in pretty good because I was pretty soon a person that was able to consume as much alcohol as anyone around me at,
Mhm.
12, 13 years old. And pretty soon it, kept on escalating and continuing on. And
Mhm.
I gained a reputation for myself pretty quickly that I was this rambunctious kid that could drink a fair amount of beers and smoke a bit of weed. And uh, people started to talk about that reputation that I had, unfortunately. And little did I know it, people would ask me in the hallways at elementary school, and then of course after it continued on to high school. But you know, people started to understand that I was this kind of kid that was acting out and a great deal with substances, and I gained this reputation in elementary at grade 6, grade 5, grade 7, things of that matter. Of this kid is drinking and smoking weed, and he doesn't care what others think about it. But yeah,
So other kids were asking you, what were they asking you?
I remember actually when, that word first started getting out, Cody, are you drinking? Like, Cody, are you smoking weed? And things of that matter, started to have the whispers around my classmates and things of that matter. And
Mhm.
I started also feeling excluded in a few different realms of things, like some friends that I might have been hanging out with at the time, uh, possibly were getting told by some of their parents that maybe, if this is happening with Cody, maybe should stay clear a little bit. And I, as a young father now, I can kind of understand where those parents were coming from. Of course,
Mhm.
you don't want your very vulnerable and fragile 12, 13, 14-year-old kids to be introduced to drugs and alcohol.
Mhm.
I can understand that, but it felt hard to
Yeah.
hear those comments and those feedback loops from kids in my classes at those times, of
So I
course.
know, like, for me, like when I first got into it, it was like a rite of passage for me. When I
Mm,
started to hear things like, "Oh yeah, that guy, he's trouble." Like I kind of was like proud of that. Like I held that close to my heart because that was something. Like people are talking about
yeah,
me in some capacity. So I'm making
yeah,
waves or whatever that is. Was there any of that for
yeah.
you? Was there ever any pride in how much you could, party and drink and smoke?
You know what, buddy? You hit the nail on the head, actually. And that's exactly the way I felt because, it felt as if, okay, well, I'm not a very good hockey player. I'm not a very good basketball player. I didn't join lacrosse or whatever growing up. And, all these things that a lot of the classmates that I had, had a what's called a belonging to, basically. Or I wasn't very familiar with my Métis heritage as I am now. I
Hmm.
didn't grow up being brought into the culture, the heritage.
Hmm.
So everyone where I looked a lot of times actually had these identities to them. Whether they're a good hockey player, a good soccer player, a good football player, whatever it was. And I was just this kid that, just learned how to play hockey. I was this kid that wasn't naturally gifted at any sport, but I did love playing sports. I found like I was trying to find my way to fit in this world so often that I took the easy path like we mostly do in our lives now. And knowing this subconsciously, I started leading into the addictions because it was familiar with me. And you know what? Pretty soon I found out I can drink with some of the best of them, and I can smoke weed with the best of them. And when you tell somebody, hey, you're good at drinking or you're good at anything in this world, what are you going to continue doing? That positive reinforcement, whether or not it was, a destructive tendencies, of course, but being told I was good at this is making me want to do it moving forward. And the same as you, I had that reputation growing in me, and pretty soon I started to believe that if I don't continue down this path,
What am
people are
I?
going to stop talking about me. Yeah, exactly. And then I'll lose that identity, and I'll lose that who I am deep down inside. And no one wants to lose their identity ever in this life.
Mhm. So you were talking to me a little bit about some of the darker things that you'd experienced in the pre-interview earlier this week, talking about going into basements and seeing some things. How old were you when that started happening? And like, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I mean, the constant evolution of somebody who kind of starts partaking in anything destructive like that, of course, it doesn't just normally stay at, a certain revolution. It kind of moves forward and deeper and darker. And pretty soon, I remember grade 8, grade 9 summer. That's when I started experimenting with, like toxins like ecstasy and things of that matter, you know, a little bit more serious things instead of just smoking weed. Started getting into hard alcohol, things of that matter. And it progressed. And I remember grade 9, grade 10, I started, using cocaine. And of course, that was, as soon as I touched that, that was pretty much on fire moving forward. And for years and years, I tried to get away from it. For years and years, I fell back into it and found myself in, using in moments of weakness in my life, unfortunately, after that.
Mhm.
But, when I was about 16 years old, the eye-opening experiences of where my addictions and my personality, my self-destructive tendencies were taking me was pretty eye-opening when I was 16. So I remember being, high, drunk, leaving a party with a good friend. We were continuing on drinking and using still for a few hours, 12, 24 hours, kind of rolling into the next day. And it was something like 1 o'clock in the morning, I think, where we ran out of drugs. We ran out of alcohol. So what did we do? Well, I asked him where we could get our next fix, basically. And he knew of a place right away. And so I remember leaving my mom's house and, taking a few blocks of a walk until we got to this house that had all the windows covered up, you know, and I couldn't see exactly what they were covered up with until we got inside the house. And then on the inside of the house, I seen a bunch of tinfoil rolls, of course, covering the windows. It made me very skittish, of course. I start wondering why would they have tinfoil on the windows. But then we walked into a dark basement, and then we got down there, and then same thing, all the windows were covered up by tinfoil and boards or whatever. And I started thinking to myself, like, man, no one really wants to be seeing what they're doing in this basement. And it had me like thinking, what's going on in here? And then, of course, we step into this basement where there's about 6 to 8 individuals, from ranges of ages of 40 to 60 years old, smoking, drinking, everything. All the paraphernalia was on the coffee table in front of them, of course, while they're sitting in a circle. And then me and my buddy sit down right at the circle with them. And, my buddy asked these people if they have any, cocaine for us, of course, to continue our adventures with. And they said, no, but we got this. And then I remember somebody passing down like a bag full of meth and a pipe. And it got pretty real. It got pretty surreal at that point in my life because, I thought I was going to be a person that kind of plays with, maybe cocaine. And then pretty soon that addictive personality, that needing that next fix, was bringing me to a basement of different strangers smoking meth. And it hit me pretty hard because I knew, the difference of substance.
Yeah.
And I knew, if I played my cards wrong, or if I said something wrong, or if I offended somebody wrong, that it was a dangerous situation. It was a different altercation, because somebody that might be smoking meth might not be, caring about your your health and your well-being to the extent of somebody maybe just having a few alcohol beverages, right? And so
So what were you
it was
thinking?
pretty eye-opening.
Like, did you do it?
I No, and you know what? That's one thing to this day that the trajectory of my life, the direction of my life, I know that was an intense crossroads of life, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I would have went left and maybe picked up that meth pipe and smoked it, I really have no idea where I'd be to this day, because I've seen friends, I've seen different people in my life that I grew up close with that have taken that path in life, and they've never came back. And, you know, I really don't know if I'd be in that same boat. But one of the things that has stuck with me, even as a 28-year-old now, you know, when I was 16 at that time, is remembering a couple of, you know, knocks on a few doors. And it was a door that was down the hallway of the basement that we were, you know, all around a coffee table with. And it was a couple knocks. You know, it was two different people knocking from behind the door. And then pretty soon, I heard a couple of voices call out and yell out, "Mom, yeah, we're hungry. We want more food. We want actual food." And, you know, I remember thinking to myself, what the hell's going on? And then, you know, a couple of voices again say, "We want something more than pop and crackers and chips." And then, you know, later I found out from my friend at the time, after we left that basement, that it's because when they, you know, do what they're doing on a weekend and get together and smoke meth, they lock the kids in that bedroom and, you know, give them whatever food they can to basically allow them to, you know, if they get thirsty or they get hungry, well, they have a couple of cans of pop or they have chips and crackers. And it scared me. It scared me a great deal, man.
So did that change the trajectory of your life?
Unfortunately, it didn't, man. That addiction was, I think it made me stay away from ever going down the path of maybe meth. I think it did, truly, deep down inside, because it made me realize that, you know, these people at this level are maybe smoking meth, and this is where everyone else kind of is in their places because of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, thinking back on it now, maybe it stopped me from ever attempting to smoke meth or, you know, to use meth. But
even at this point, then, as far as you had gone with your drinking and whatever else, you still had a moral compass on some level.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, man. Like, I do believe that's, like I said, you know, with previous chats with you and what I just said on the start of the, you know, podcast, is I do believe my mom ingrained a empathetic, you know, a big heart in me, and it definitely grew with seeing some of the things that my mom went through and things of that matter. You know, how much love my mom did have for me, even though we would fight and argue and all this. But, you know, part of my book that I am actually writing right now, so one of the chapters is how I grew my empathy. And my mom is a big part to play in that. And so I talk about some of the stories that I grew up with, right? So how I grew my empathy, one of the parts of the chapter is seeing my mom, you know, crying, bawling her eyes out, and she being up all night because she was watching videos of a great, like, catastrophe happening in the world. So something like 9/11 or something like Hurricane Katrina, you know, some like major world events. I remember waking up to go to school in the morning or, you know, in the middle of the night, whatever it may be. And I can remember very, very vividly seeing my mom being in great shock and great, like, emotional distress because she was watching these videos of people going through these, you know, painful situations in their lives. And my mom would have never met these people. They're across the world, but yet she had this soft spot. She had this, you know, this pain behind her eyes because she knew these people were going through these pains in life. And my mom, being who she is, like, you know, she never had to meet these people to feel their emotion and feel their distress. And, you know, like I said, part of the book that I'm writing is going to have that detailed in there because I definitely believe I have the heart that I do now because some of the things that I've witnessed growing up with, you know, my mom. And different realms.
So there was a suicide attempt too. What led up to that?
Yeah. So, like, pretty soon, like I said, continuously growing this reputation, this identity of myself that I was gaining across, the hallways of high school now at this point, with teachers and other classmates and different people that I've never met before, or that I met them and I was blacked out at a house party or whatever it may be. Going to school on a Monday or a Tuesday, and I would see a lot of these people, come up to me in the hallways, and they would ask me, "Hey, I heard you got arrested this weekend," or "I heard you got in a fight this weekend." And different things would continuously happen. And I thought to myself, well, I mean, that's kind of who I am now. And it's just a person that doesn't care about my own health and safety. And of course, that led to me being not a very smart individual and thinking that I was never going to really get hurt by some of the actions I would take. And some of those actions I would take would be, of course, after getting pretty hammered up, getting behind the wheel of my car, and of course driving to the next party, or driving myself home. And nothing ever bad happened, but up until it was a week before grade 12 started, me and my best friend were at a house party. We had a designated driver that night. I remember very clearly. The designated driver asked us if we wanted to go home. And me and my good friend at 2:30 in the morning, we were saying, no, it's only 2:30 in the morning. We're 18, 17, 16, whatever ages. We got plenty of hours ahead of us, right? And of course, when we did decide that, maybe we should move on to the next party, it was my car keys in my pocket. And something that I've done dozens of times before was get behind the wheel and take us to the next destination. But of course, the amount of alcohol I had in me at that time was something that I should have been more, hooked up to an IV or get my stomach pumped, not necessarily behind the wheel of a moving car. And I remember, looking eye to eye with my best friend, smiling, of course, at a joke that I can't even remember to this day, and neither can he. But speeding a great deal, and then, in a split second, we hit a meridian, and then it shot my car towards some trees. And then, like I said, like a blink of an eye, we came towards that tree, and it was like the world froze, I can still see that image in my head. And of course we hit that tree, and it was later found out by the cops and the investigators, things of that matter, that we hit that tree going about 116, coming to a complete stop. And so what prompted me trying to take my own life back then was my best friend. I look over and, I say to him, we have to get out of here. The cops are going to come. We're going to get arrested because, you don't just hit a tree and walk away from it without some consequences, of course. And then, I remember trying to wake up my buddy. I started raising my voice and I started yelling, wake up, man. Come on, let's go. I thought he was just knocked out, simply. Then I started, playing that whole, those games in my head that maybe he's actually not waking up. Maybe he's not, gonna ever wake up. And I remember actually, passing out shortly after that because all the adrenaline and the contusions and, the alcohol, it's a combination of a lot of things that made me pass out. Short story sweet, I woke up in an ambulance, just outside my vehicle in a pretty bad way, pretty bad emotional state. Once again, my body shuts itself down. I woke up in the hospital in Prince Albert, strapped to a stretcher, and finding out my friend there was on his way to Saskatoon Hospital because his major, swelling of his brain, they had to send him to Saskatoon so that they could do the best that they possibly could to keep him alive that night.
Yeah.
And so a few hours later after that initial impact, I woke up in the Prince Albert Hospital. My mom was, sitting right beside my bed. And I begged her to take me home because I didn't want to be seen in public. I was quite embarrassed. I was quite ashamed of what had happened because, I screwed up and I put somebody on, very close to not being with us to this day. And I remember being in my bedroom, I don't know, like 10, 14 days, something like, in and out, of course, of, just rabbit holes of me yelling at a bedroom wall because I was so angry at the world. I was emotional. I was upset. Every like bad emotion I had going through me in my entire life was all accumulated in this time for those 2 weeks or 3 weeks, whatever it may be. And then I remember a few friends at the time that I was friends with came to my mother's house. We sat on the deck while I chain smoked pack of cigarettes, half a pack of cigarettes or whatever within the hour or two that they were there. And, we're all laughing. I have a big smile on my face because I'm pretending that my buddy that is in the Saskatoon hospital at the time in a self-induced coma is going to survive because he's one of the toughest people I know in this world, and he still is to this day. But, I'm putting this smile and this act on my face thinking that everything's going to be all right.
Are the people around you buying it?
You know what? I'd like to go back and ask them what they thought at that time.
Mm-hmm.
I no longer see any of them, to be honest, anymore. But you know what? Like for me, what I understood is I think they did. I don't think they actually understood how much pain I had deep down inside of me. Mm-hmm. Because if they knew, actually, I don't think somebody would have left me in that state, knowing what how bad I was feeling at that time. And so I heard somebody's voice say, yeah, I just talked to his parents. He's not making it through the night. And then, of course, the world of terror starts to flood over me. And, it feels like I'm sinking in quicksand. And after everyone left that night, I remember, going to my mother's basement, trying to drown out my sorrows with more cigarettes, whatever else I could find. And I remember being on my hands and knees crawling around her basement. It was a little bit of a cluttered mess back then. And I remember, trying to find nails, like a regular nail that use a hammer to nail into something. And I remember trying to find as many as possible. And I remember finding one, behind a washer or dryer. I need to find more, so I was looking behind closet doors, wherever I could find them. And then I remember after finding about 5 to 7 of them, I took the belt off my waist and I hung the one side of the belt by the rafters. And I put the other side around my neck and I put the loop up, and without honestly what I can remember any hesitation, I jumped. And because I thought to myself, if my friend's not going to be here anymore, neither am I, because what world is that where I survive and he doesn't? I couldn't live with that.
So maybe you just answered my question there, but with the fear, with the pain inside of you, was it the fear of the consequences along with the fear of losing your friends, along with the fear of what the community is going to think, whether you're going to be exiled? What was the most prominent thing in your mind that drove you to that place?
I wasn't going to live with myself knowing my best friend wasn't going to be here anymore because of my actions. Mm. I don't know how to describe it more than that. Mm-hmm. I didn't see it as being fair that I was still going to be here. And if he wasn't, like I said, I didn't see that life moving forward and, something I wanted to live with.
So you're here now. It didn't work.
Yeah, thankfully enough. But I did remember waking up the next morning, man, with half the belt's still hanging by my neck. I'm laying on the floor on my back, and I'm seeing the other half kind of like on the ceiling, with still all the nails still in it, because I put enough in there that I made sure that those nails were going to hold my body weight. And I like sat up, realized that, that half of the belt is still there. The other half is by my neck. And I took the belt off my neck. I looked around, kind of didn't believe if I was still alive or not. Truly, I didn't know, because it was a dark basement still, and I was just coming out of it, whatever it was. And I looked around. I see no one was around me, and I just took that belt off, and I just went on about my day. I kept that story to myself for probably 2 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And the first person I told was my friend that I was in that car crash with.
What do you say?
I told him, it's like, I can't remember exactly what he said, but he's like, "Oh shit, man." He's like, "Well, we're still here for a reason."
Hang on a sec. Donna wants to chime in here.
I'm just kind of curious, like, with that admission to your best friend and given everything else that you guys have been through, how is your relationship today?
Yeah, you know what? Like, that's a good question. It's something I get asked all the time, actually. Um, as much as running a business, as much as being a father, as much as trying to be a present husband or a future husband, fiance, it doesn't leave, every day of the week free, of course. But you know what? I'm actually very thankful to say that, he came to my store yesterday, actually on a Saturday afternoon, when I had my young guy that works for me doing what I had him doing. Of course, I delegated, and my buddy came, sat in my back of the store, and we sat here and drank coffee for 4 hours. And that happens every so often, and it's something that I'm incredibly thankful for to this day, because no one hated me more than myself. But he's a person that never blamed me for that situation. And I remember how much love I still have for this guy. I love to express with words when I can find them, but I remember, after this whole crash was going on, and I got my charges and everything of that matter, he was approached by somebody that worked for, the driver insurance company. I'm not going to say names or anything, but somebody approached him and said, you can sue Cody for, thousands and thousands of dollars, or you can make it so that he goes to jail for a few years. And I remember not even knowing any of this. And, this was after I served my time, after my charges were off. And one day he said to me as a joke, he's like, "Man, I still remember when people were trying to get me to sue you." And I was like, "What?" I didn't hear that. I didn't know that, but yeah.
Well, good thing at the time too, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing you didn't know that at the time. That would have been another layer of anxiety that I'm sure you didn't need.
Well, that's
Yeah, no, I'm right with you.
the insurance company, whose name we will not mention.
Yeah.
That is their effort to offload any sort of EI or anything like that in the event of long-term injuries resulting from
Yeah.
something like that. So if anybody out there is not aware that that is an actual thing, it's an actual thing.
So
See, that's good to know. Yeah.
yeah. So you said that you just went on about your day. That you had this experience, you tried to end it, and then you just got up and went about your day. So to me you kept using, like, that wasn't the end for you. Like, what brought you into recovery, if not that?
You know what? And that is a lot of people have asked me too, like, is that where your life turned around for the better? And I wish it was. I wish it was at that moment, because I mean, you don't go through many more moments in life like that, of course, right? So why wouldn't that be the one? But I never knew I needed the extra help that I needed, still to this point. And I was dealing with a whole lot more of baggage, to be honest, after that, right? Knowing that I tried to take my life, knowing that every single person that I come across to every day of my life doesn't know this, but I know this, Like
Mm-hmm.
my family didn't know it. I just knew I kept on to this pain. And then what made it even worse, the only person that did know that I tried to take my own life was my friend that was in the car crash with me. And every single time I hung out with him, I would I would get distraught. I would get like that PTSD. I would get that flashback. It would play over and over in my head. So every single time I would go hang out with him, I'd leave and think everything's okay, but my next urge would be to go use, would be go, snort as much drugs as I could up my nose, or drink, the entire evening that night, or whatever it was. And like over and over again, I didn't know this was happening. I just thought,
Felt like business as
I didn't know
usual.
what I thought. I thought it was business as usual. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's a good way to put it, man.
Yeah.
I didn't necessarily know I was dealing with a lot more trauma deep down inside of me than what I ever had dealt with before. And the truth is, I thought I was getting back on the clean path here and there and stuff, and I relapsed and I would get darker. I got on the straight and narrow, and then I relapsed, and it was a vicious cycle. And anyone that thinks recovery is a straight line to like the beautiful life that we all live
Nobody thinks
now
that here.
is yeah. It's because everyone knows here. Yeah.
This is Hard
It's
Knocks
not
Talks.
necessarily the case. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
But like two things that have stayed with me my entire life. Okay. And every single presentation that I go and speak for a school, a treatment center, a corporation, a company, anything, I normally lead off the presentation by saying two things I was told when I was about 16 were going to happen in my life if I didn't turn my life around. The first thing was that I was going to go to jail some point in my life if I didn't turn things around. After that car crash, after, my buddy recovered, thankfully enough, after we finished grade 12, I put on my I put off my court case. I got it adjourned and adjourned and adjourned so that I could do my very best to graduate grade 12, because I knew if I went to jail, trying to graduate grade 12 after coming back from that was going to be 10 times harder, just because, getting back in the swing of things and whatever it might have been. I just knew I was going to jail, and, no one else didn't know that, but I knew that. And that's where I ended up going for a few weeks, got sent up to a work camp and things of that matter, part of my sentence. But, the first thing I was told when I was 16 was that I was going to go to jail at some point in my life.
Mm-hmm.
When I was 16, many kids are told that they can go to university, they can go to college, they can start families, they can start careers, they can start businesses, whatever they're told when they're 16 to give them the most life that they ever have possibly could have imagined. I was told, like your trajectory of your life is making you go towards, jail at some point. And that came to life. That came, to real, of course. And the second thing that I was told was that if not, your life is going to be over before you begin to actually truly start to live. That was the second thing I was told from this lovely lady that I used to work with at a grocery store back in the day. And, after kind of getting away from that car crash, for a few years, not necessarily knowing all the things that I had up here, started to use again, went through a couple hard relationships with family and friends and different things again. And the vicious cycle started again, of course, and it got to a point that I just simply didn't care again. I thought to myself, well, I'm not going to make it till 30. Like that was what was in my head.
Can I jump
And
in
then,
for a
of
sec,
course,
Cody?
Yeah,
Before
for
you
sure.
get too much further away, like being a parent as well, like I'm always curious about messaging to youth and youngsters and all that kind of thing, and for people watching, um, when that lovely individual said things to you like you're headed for jail and basically you're not going to amount to anything. How did you interpret that? Was that like a, well, I'm just fuck it then, that's my fate, I'm just gonna roll with it? Or,
You're like,
like
you don't know me. You don't know what you're talking about. Yeah.
like could it have maybe been worded a
I
little bit better to, and not to detract from what she was attempting to do. Obviously, her heart was in the right place. But I just, again, language can be such an important thing when we're, communicating to people who are in active addiction or mental health struggles. So,
Mm.
what are your thoughts on that, Cody?
Could she have said it
you know,
somehow
and
differently?
where my head was at, I've been asked this actually before, and same thing with my mom telling me things, or same thing with family friends telling me things. So you need to clean up, you need to straighten up. I was just so bullheaded. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think it really mattered what people said in a different shape or form. Uh, the prefrontal cortex of a individual is not fully developed by age of about 25, of course, and that does a lot of the contemplation of pulling back on our bad decisions, of course, and things of that matter.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I really wish I would have known that that lady was serious and she, had something to be right about, instead of me just laughing it off.
Mm-hmm.
And I do remember that was my reaction. I laughed it off and I kind of walked away.
Mm-hmm.
And, I remember being released from my time away. And that was like one of the first things I wanted to do that first week I got home, is go see if she still worked at that grocery store. She did. And of course, I went, gave her a hug. I said, well, I guess you're right. And yeah,
Tell us
I
about the
still
day.
remember that.
Tell us about the day you decided to stop. The day you decided to change your life.
So, full transparency, I tried years ago for sure. So, like 22, 23. Um, I just never really seeked out help. I never seeked out chatting with anyone about it. So I thought I could just do it myself. Of course, that led to relapse, and things of that matter. And, I'm not perfect, nor do I ever pretend to be. Definitely a hell of a lot better than I used to be, though. But one of the really altering moments of my life was when I actually did, like, go out partying again for 24, 48 hours in a person's garage, actually, that lived close to my mom's house. And all we did was sit at his garage, snort drugs. We drank and we snorted drugs and we smoked cigarettes. And I did that for hours and hours. I don't remember how long, but I remember getting home to my mom's house and being so high that, like, I truly just felt like my chest was just bursting out of my heart was going to burst out of my chest, better way to put it. And I got to my mom's basement, or sorry, my mom's living room at about 10 o'clock in the, morning. It was a wintry day. And I just fell on her living room. And I started yelling, Mom, I can't breathe. I was having hard times breathing. It's more or less probably a panic attack or anxiety attack, or all the adrenaline in me, making me feel this way. And I remember her, running out of her bedroom, like crying and screaming. And she's like, what the hell did you take? What the hell did you take? And I just remember putting her through a lot of pain. And, she ended up calling my brother, I do believe at that time, and a good high school friend that I was still friends with at the time. And they ended up taking me to the hospital. And, I was fine. I was okay. But I remember thinking to myself, that's kind of to go back to what that lady said to me. The second thing is, if you don't turn around your life, you're going to be dead before your life begins to truly live. And that was replaying in my head a couple times. That second statement that I was told was going to happen, because she got the first one right. If I kept on testing my luck, the second one was going to become,
Yeah.
not so good.
Yeah.
So that was a big altering moment to my life.
So tell us about your first year in recovery after you came out of that.
Well, to be honest, I had to start seeing some help. I actually, I knew I couldn't do things myself. I had to see, mental health therapists. I went to wherever I could to chat about stuff. I went seeing addiction services. I tried my best to stop going to different places that, would be a trigger for me. And the worst part about it is, I relapsed after that too. I don't know exact timelines, exact dates, but I knew it took me a couple of times, unfortunately, of really trying my hardest to get away from that stuff. And, I don't know exact timelines. I'm not one of those people that say, I haven't touched drugs in 567 days or whatever it may be. My my hands go off to those people, or sorry, my hats go off to those people. I love people that know those dates, because it is a really remarkable time of their life where they took control back of their lives.
I know
I
right down
don't
to the
know that.
minute. I know right down to the minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to
See,
guess
and
at
that's
mine,
powerful.
and I was close to like the end of March, early April. So I was like April 1st. Why the hell
Yeah.
not?
April Fools. Why not?
I love it.
Yeah.
Make
I'll
your own
never
date. I
forget
love
it.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's my date. So,
Yeah,
okay.
that's beautiful.
So you stumbled around for a while, like so many of us do. That's not outside of what most would consider normal. But now you're sitting here in your store with your brand on the wall behind you, having
Yeah.
people beating your door down, looking for mentorship and how to run a successful brand here in Saskatchewan. Like, you've done amazing things, man. It's incredible. So why don't you tell us, like we were talking before the show, and even I was like, I have great respect for you for being able to build a brand from scratch and find the success that you've had. So clearly you've made some good decisions in your life, my friend. When did that start happening? When did you start to see the light and start to move forward in a positive way? Like, do you remember the day?
I appreciate that, man. Thank you very much, Donna. Thank you for sharing as well. So, like, you know what? Part of my recovery, I definitely do believe the brand Limitless Gear Clothing had a big part to play, because it truly did. Like, I created the brand, 6 years ago out of the trunk of my car, okay, with about 100 t-shirts. Right around this time in January, not the best time to start any retail business, by the way, if anyone's listening and wants to start one yourself. But it was part of my recovery. It was part of my healing that I needed to do. And you know what? The reason why the brand Limitless came to mind is because one of my all-time favorite movies, of course, was Limitless with Bradley A. Cooper. Now, this kind of contradicts the message, of course, because he takes a pill.
A lot
Yeah.
of pills.
Yeah. But
Doesn't he end
for
up at
me,
least
deep down inside,
microdosing though?
yes. Yeah.
He wasn't behaving like he was microdosing, that's for
At
sure.
the end. Come on, Dan, get with the
Yeah.
program. Sorry, Cody, go ahead.
No, that's the tough part, because the movie does contradict what I'm like, where my life turned around, right? It does.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, it wasn't the fact that the guy takes a pill and becomes this person that he is. It was the fact that this person could do that, is what I really looked into. It's the fact that this guy could turn around his life for the better. It's the fact that this guy could shift mountains and make beautiful things happen in this world, and be a leader and be a person that wants to better the world. That is where my life started to turn around for the better. And of course, after starting the brand, I did relapse a few times, and full transparency, because that's who I am. I'm being authentic, I'm being real, but I can damn sure tell you I'm really proud that it's been a few years, and I'm damn thankful for that since I've touched drugs. And I'm never looking back, and I know that past is behind me and it's never coming back. I can promise you that. But the thought of but the thought of being able to do some amazing things with some intentions in this world is one of the main things that helped me turn around my life for the better. And starting this brand 6 years ago, I told everyone what I wanted to see. I told everyone that I wanted to have a full store for one day for my brand. And I wrote that on a piece of paper about 2 months after starting this brand out of the trunk of my car. And I kept that piece of paper in my wallet for 6 months. And you know where that piece of paper is still to this day?
Where's the piece of paper?
Picture frame. It's in a picture frame behind my counter in my store that we've had for 3 years in downtown Prince Albert. Something I'm incredibly thankful for, because this brand, whether or not I do it forever the rest of my life, is a different story. But it allowed me to be who I am now, and it allowed me to be the person that I am thankful and I'm proud for today, and somebody who can take care of their family moving forward, and somebody who's not going to be the person who I used to be. And so, one of the greatest accomplishments of my entrepreneurial life, my journey, is for one, recovery from drugs. And I'm thankful to be there as well with recovery for drugs. But, one of the recognitions that I was gifted for the brand and my motivational speaking that I do now is this little puppy. You know, when I was named
This little puppy.
this little puppy, when I was named Young Entrepreneur of the Year for Saskatchewan for 2021.
Mhm.
And that was in the midst of COVID shutting down the world and all sorts of craziness back then too. You know, a good friend of mine that is manager of the Northern Lights Casino here told me in 40 years that these ABEX awards have been a thing of Saskatchewan. 40 years, you know, so 10, 15 categories each year, whatever it might be, right? There's only been about 4 or 5 individuals to receive an ABEX award that have built and operated a business in Prince Albert. And I'm thankful to say I'm one of them.
Amazing, dude. Tell us a little bit about how you manage your thoughts, because I mean thoughts still go sideways, and you know you and I both know running a business that you know might be a little bit unconventional for the part of the world we live in, as far as you know like starting a brand from scratch, for example. I will never not be in awe of that. That is incredible, and like and for myself like podcasting, like who even does that? You know that's great. So tell us, when things get really stressful for you, when your thoughts start to go sideways, what do you do? What do you do to bring yourself back? How do you unplug?
Well, I do believe a lot of the work that I do now, you know, when it goes to speaking for treatment centers, high schools, elementaries, corporations, like I said, I think that keeps me grounded, man. I do truly believe like I can go have a rough day here and there. Whatever happens, you know, a bill comes out of nowhere and it's $1,000 for whatever reason, whatever happens. And I can go speak the next day and that all melts away. Like it truly, it's became one of my careers now, of course, and something I take care of my family, but not only take care of my family, it is something that heals me no matter what happens in the world. It allows me to continue on. It allows me to empower people. And it allows me to believe that I'm actually making a freaking difference in this world. And like, if I didn't believe I was making a difference in this world, I can tell you right now, my mental health personally, because I know who I am, I know what I'm made of now. I can tell you it wouldn't be as strong as it is right now. And, you know, I still have my low days, whether or not, you know, my low days are as low as they used to be. That's definitely not the truth, right? Because I've learned a lot of techniques, a lot of techniques, a lot of strigs, knowing since, you know, what I used to know, right? I can tell you right now, on a crappy day, my first thought isn't to go get high, because I know how crappier my days got because of that back in the day. But you know,
Where does it
having a
go?
beautiful, it goes into being creative, man. It goes to like empower me for what I can do next. So I told our good mutual friend Alan Keller the other day that I have a damn ambitious goal, and that goal is, of course, to write my book that I want to write and finish it and send it off to an editor this month.
Ooh.
And you know where we're at right now? I have 4 chapters of that book
How many are you shooting for?
written. I want a dozen. I want a dozen. Dozen's a good number.
Have you ever heard anyone tell you, or has anyone ever told you, or you heard tell anyone else, that your recovery can't be your work? Like I've heard it said a lot to in like counseling circles and stuff. Like say there's a person who's found recovery in the program. I've heard people in that program say like you can't get your recovery from your counseling job. Your recovery has to be separate from that. Has anyone ever said that to you?
Believe it or not, my friend, I've never heard that just yet.
Really?
Until now.
Well, now you have.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, you can't do that, Cody. You can't do that.
Believe it or not, man, though, like truly, it's probably been one of the biggest things that I've done for my recovery. It's wanted to keep me on the straight path, you know.
I can relate, man. Like and like everything
Yeah.
that you just said there. Like if I'm in a dark place and I have a really good conversation on a Sunday night and everything goes well, man, that's the fix. That is the fix. That
there.
like and you know like that's in service to community. I've done good service work there, and that's I mean, Donna's shaking her head because she's seen the difference just
Yeah.
between, you know, like if I have a good day and I know that I've served community in a positive and productive way, that's it for me, you know?
Yeah. And
So
that's a beautiful thing, man, because this world needs more of that. This world needs more passion, lived purposes, and more people that want to provide service to others.
mm,
Providing service to others is damn near one of the most selfish things a person can do. It took me serving as many people as I possibly could to understand that, because
mhm,
after trying to do a speaking engagement, to somebody to hopefully give somebody enlightenment or hope or whatever it might be, that courage to want to, be on that path.
mm,
You know, I don't always get to hear it leave an audience or leave in a school
mhm,
of how that might have impacted people, but I definitely have to believe deep down inside that that message got to at least one individual in that room that is going to hopefully make a better decision, whether that decision is 5 years or 10 years down the line.
mm,
Knowing that that is a possible outcome is one of the things that continues to drive me moving forward.
mm.
Um, you know, Needing to hear that feedback all the time can be a dangerous thing, because truth is, if you want to serve this world, you might not hear that feedback all the time. But you have to know that your intentions matter, and trying to serve this community or serve whoever you might in this world is a very powerful thing with the right, genuine intentions.
We've got Tommy from Unhooked Addictions and Wellness Coaching, and I'm assigning tone to Tommy's voice here because, like, I know Tommy. He's like, I've never heard that before. So I guess Dan's just crazy. I guess I'm just the only one that's ever heard that. But he goes on. He goes on to say, and I love you, Tommy, and thanks for joining tonight. He goes on to say, sober talking at work helps me stay sober in my own life. So I guess
Love
Dan will
that.
just leave it alone then.
But you got to
So
work. You got to do what works for you, though, right? Like, for sure.
of course, yeah,
Yeah.
and like I don't necessarily agree with the statement either, because like I dive into my work and I get an abundance of fulfillment from what I do. So
Yeah.
I don't know why I said that, but anyways,
And it's
um,
okay. It's okay.
so what else, man? I mean, we're coming to the end here, but is there anything else that we didn't touch on that you want to make sure we do?
Yeah, for sure. Like off the top of my head, this wasn't planned or scripted, but our world is moving towards a lot of addictions, a lot of mental health, more and more. And my heart does break out for a lot of those people, because anyone that's lived on that addiction side of drugs or whatever it might be, you understand that pain that that person is going through.
Mm-hmm.
And if I could ever say one thing to somebody, is find something that you're passionate about. Find something that drives you. Find something that makes that addiction stronger, or sorry, makes that purpose of fulfilling stronger than that addiction. To go back on that fulfillment, for me personally, my fulfillment and my service to others has allowed me to promise myself to never want to fall back on those addictions. It's not necessarily the most ideal way of recovery, but I definitely know it works for me, and I definitely know a lot of people have similarities when it comes to DNA makeup, whether that's ADHD, whether that's the impulsive thinking, that self-destructive tendencies, or whatever it might be. Soon as you find something that you can actually live and put as much passion and creative knowledge and experience into, like we get to, thankfully, very much so, man, your world is like sky the limit. Truly, you can climb any mountain you ever wanted to, uh, metaphorically or physically, whatever it might be. Understanding that you as well, every single person in this world, has a role to play and has a way to provide service to others is one of the most powerful things. And I might not be the most artistic person with a piece of paper and pen, but damn sure know there's a few people, at least on the show, or going to be listening to this show, that are. Don't be scared to show the world your beautiful talents. Do not be scared, right? Because on the other side of just attempting something is something beautiful waiting to happen. And once you believe you have the ability and capacity to do great things, that is when life becomes limitless.
There it is, brother. All right. Um, I guess we'll leave it there. If y'all are watching, don't leave. We're going to spin the wheel in a bit. But for now, Cody, thank you so much for joining us tonight. What a great conversation. Thank you for sharing your experience and strength with us and showing us that it's possible to come out the other side of these things and to do great things. And with that, we'll let you go, man. Take care.
Thank you so much for having me tonight, brother. Really appreciate it. You as well too, Donna. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us tonight, Cody. You did awesome. Thank you.
Take care. All right, if you're getting something out of what we're doing here, you can find all our audios on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts, or live and interactive, right here on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch TV. Thanks for watching. Take care, my friends. This is Hard Knox Talks. All right. That's my daughter. If you didn't know, that's at the end there. She was messing around in the studio and I captured it and I got it, and we're going to use it forever now. So anyways, do you have a shirt, Cody, to show us? Show us the shirt that we're giving away.
We have an adult small here, but we can have anything up to adult 3X if somebody needs with this hoodie.
All right.
So
well,
whatever size they need, we got.
All right. Well, we got all the names on the wheel.
Can I put my name on the wheel? I really want that hoodie.
No, you cannot have it. But what you can do is you can spin that wheel. Let's go. Who's it gonna be? Matt Taylor.
Mavis Taylor.
Oh, you know her?
I do. Mavis, yeah.
Does she already have 10 in her closet?
She doesn't, actually.
Well, you know what we're going to do? Because I'm feeling I can't let you give away a shirt and not give away a shirt. We're going to give away a Hard Knocks Talks t-shirt. So let's spin it again.
Nice.
Oh, yes. Here we go. Stacy Michelle wins a Hard Knocks Talks t-shirt. All right, everyone. We're going to let you go. Thanks so much for joining us. Cody, thanks again for stopping by. And that is it. Take care, my friends. We will see you next week on Hard